Hello and welcome to Gene Keys with Monifa, your path to vocal superpower. So, as you know, we're here to share the love of the Gene Keys. I love to do the work with the Gene Keys because it really does help me to solidify what I understand about what is moving through and the potential for energy, which are Brett calls the gifts, the genius of our frequencies, of our ways of being. And so when I get to look at the shadow, the gift, and the city of each of these frequencies, it just reminds me that we are all here being human and we have the potential for living in our genius and our gift every time we see the other side of it. So my goal is to be more in my genius more often, and this helps me to do that. And we all have superpowers when we are only seeing the not so great parts of ourselves. So sometimes for people who are too hard on themselves, it's nice to have the understanding that there's a potential for other. And then what does it look like and what does it feel like when we're in that? And then we get to remember, remodel that experience, right? So we delve into the systems, we find our archetypes, we understand ourselves and others, and gain this huge sense of compassion and being a part of a greater beauty, genius, humanity. We start at the purpose because and that's what we're about here. We're about our purpose. We're here to live on purpose, right? Now, the thing about this is that I understand purpose not to be what you do, right? What actions you take and the purpose trajectory of your life. I see purpose as who we be. It's what we are made up of. And so we don't have to try to be on purpose. We get to allow ourselves to be fully ourselves in our highest self and genius, right? We'll be talking about the three levels of the gene key, the shadow, the gift, and the city. So the shadow is the low vibration, the gift is the high vibration or expression of genius, and the city is what I call the service to all. And it is essentially the epitome of that energy and what it looks like when it's lived out in a large way that encompasses all of humanity. And so what it looks like when all of humanity is in sync of that city. And that is Siddhi, Siddhi. So a few things about the way I present the gene keys. I am present, but I am not perfect. How things come to me at any given time is kind of just how it does. And I'm not a perfect representation of the gene keys. So if you want the full gamut, check the comments for a link directly to the gene keys site to get more from the source. Also, when we are looking at the archetypes of the gene keys, that we are not letting it tell us who we are, but we are referencing it to our experiences in life so that we can understand how they actually look and play out in life so that we can see the genius in ourselves and others and the potential for that and see and dive us into it for each other. The Vocal Superpower chart is a chart that I put together from Western astrology, gene keys, and human design to help us to see how ourselves, our energies are wanting to express through our bodies in this current DNA structure. And so it is a process of the same work as astrology, charting that energy from the time that you come onto the planet. And it is a way for us to tap into what our voices want to express in the full gamut of expression. And when I say voice, I do mean the physical voice. And I'm also talking about the voicing of our self expression. So that can look like image, can look like branding. And that's another subject that I like to talk about here on my channel. Okay, let's dive into Gene Key 19, line 1. It is the shadow of codependence, the gift of sensitivity, and the city of sacrifice. So I'm going to do a quick disclaimer. This is going to not probably sound really great to people who are really tied to their religions. So It's an idea, and you don't have to accept the idea. But if you are looking possibly for why religion often manifests in the shadow, we're about to find out. Okay. So, codependence, it is about relying on things outside of ourselves. We consider something outside of ourselves to be the authority, and then we recognize that authority in order for us to be able to survive, essentially, right? So, that part of the desire to recognize what is causing something of what could be wrong is about survival. It's about like, and initially in our humanity, it's about food. It's about food sources and about recognizing where does food come from. So it starts out by worshiping nature itself, the things that provide us with the sustenance to live, the sun, the earth, the fruits and the trees. And then it becomes something in which we create an understanding of something else being the cause. This is a direct quote from Richard Rudd's book, The Gene Keys. A scientist might say that man's spiritual evolution comes about as a result of his biological evolution, the desire for food. And the mystic tends to see it the opposite way around. But religion born of the 19th key is about depending on an authority outside of yourself, God or gods. And that shadow vibration relies upon idea of being separate from that authority, right? So if you, let's say that you are Christian and and you believe that God is only separate from you, then it makes you rely on authority outside of yourself. From my understanding of the Bible, God is always with you, and it's actually our perception and perspective that makes us feel that we are separate, right? And so, whenever we feel like that, it is our own idea of being separate of God, right? That causes that angst, and which puts us in a state of victimhood instead of authority or triumph or sovereignty. The definition of a victim is saying that you are not able to defend and or support yourself and need something outside of yourself or someone outside of yourself in order to survive and even thrive. So that's how it becomes like a perpetuation and even something that gets bigger, right? Right. So if we allow it to keep going down the trajectory, it becomes, well, I don't need just to survive. I need my favorite things and I need to feel comfortable. I need to feel safe. I need to feel, right? I can go down a whole gamut. The programming partner of Key 19 is 33. And that shadow is the shadow of forgetting. And so this is a really interesting always how the programming partners are reflecting each other, right? Because of their opposition. And so what shows up here is us forgetting that we are connected to the whole, to the universe, and to God, if that is your belief. So when we remember, we are able to move into a state of our gift. But if we are in a like perpetual forgetting, forgetting our true nature as a spirit, then we become codependent, right? Now, food has always been the main source of fear for this. We are dependent upon food for survival, right? But as we are growing in our evolution of humanity, which if you are interested, there is a full moon in Aquarius video on the channel that we talk a little bit about how it's showing up now in our ability to become the future of human being that this chapter in the Gene Keys is titled. So check that out if you're interested in that furthering of how I'm reading these energies. When we are becoming less worried about our food sources because our food systems are fairly automated, or not automated, really, they're actually people oftentimes, but they are dependable. So we are not as focused on running out of food as we used to be. we are moving into a dynamic that is changing, right? Because of the dynamic of needing food, we needed our tribe to be able to bring all the food together and then divide it for the tribe. And we needed the tribe's ability to defend itself, right? And from others and to separate itself from other tribes in order for us to defend our food source. So it's this kind of evolution that is going from this fear to more being connected to each other regardless of tribe. And so that looks like our children even being raised by society more than they're raised by any one parent because they are exposed to global truths through videos online, and the internet, and in their own communities. And the schools are often raising the children. So it's just the evolution of our humanity. And as we see it play out, we have less fear, but because we also sense the divergence of people who are not afraid and the people who are still afraid, it causes two kind of paths to emerge that can cause fear and violence on the other side of that. So as we evolve, the goal is to become united in that understanding of being united with all beings on planet Earth. The repressive side of this looks like being needy. It is this tendency to feel needy and to cling. And I know this has been something that shows up a lot in relationships because often we can't let go of the past because pain we experienced previously in a relationship, in family dynamics, maybe even seeing pain of a family member, like a parent, having that pain within a relationship. So, what we do is we often try to make our partners and our friends responsible for fulfilling the desire for safety from that pain, right? So the pain of being alone or unsupported, and all of these different things come up as a point of being the victim, of needing something that somebody didn't give you. Obviously, this can perpetuate in a lot of different ways, just because a lot of the things that our parents are made to kind of support us with, they aren't perfect, so they don't. Even the great ones can't provide it all of the time. So we tend to create our needs from whatever we feel we did not get as a child as well. And when we are in that state of victimhood, we often manipulate, and we also, on the flip side, like to feel needed. So because we consider that the greatest value really of what somebody can be, we feel like if we're needed, then we will be wanted, and then we'll be able to maintain our codependency, right? Our safety. And so it also makes those with this key really good at getting negative attention because essentially you have no problems with looking bad or as a victim in order for you to get the hit, right? Of feeling connected to somebody and feeling supported and safe. And it is a survival feeling. So this is not something where we're just being superficial or only being manipulative, right? It's born out of this fear. It's born out of fear. On the reactive side, it's called being isolated, which is more born out of anger. So when we act outward from this feeling of being codependent, it can look like angrily refusing attention, loudly proclaiming, I love the way that Richard says this, that that we don't need anyone, right? And so that can really show like how we we are often in contradiction of ourselves. So we say that we don't want attention, but we're loudly complaining and wanting for people to know how alone that we are. So we like to make a show of that. And we often get bitter, not instead of asking, right, for people to be there and to and hope for that and expect that and having the pain again not being met possibly, we get bitter, right? And then People when people just, oh, they're angry, I don't want to be around an angry person, or they feel the anger is directed at them, they just leave them alone. But then that's part of the reason why they feel angry. And so it becomes this a cycle of isolation, right? And then the people that do reach out, often we explode from the pent-up emotion that we get to share while being isolated. And then in that explosion, again, can push people away, right? So that is the shadow side of this. The gift is miraculous. It's beautiful. I mean, all the gifts are, but the gift is sensitivity. Whenever I think about all of the things that I worked on about highly sensitive people, and so much of this is what happens for highly sensitive people and empaths. And I don't have the key 19 in my chart, but gosh, can I not talk about all the expressions of this that I've seen and felt in my life? Yes. So this is not just about somebody telling you who you are. When we get to recognize ourselves in these systems, it really does start to shape more of our understanding of what wants to come through us and our gifts. So sensitivity, being highly attuned to the needs of others. This can cause us to be overly sensitive because we often don't recognize the difference between our feelings and others. But in this gift, and especially with this key, you don't really feel that sensitivity until you're tuned in to the vibration, the higher vibration, right? And so when we get into the higher vibration is when we also, I believe, a portal, we portal into the gifts that come with it. So there's so many in this one. A gift of touch, which doesn't necessarily have to mean physical touch, but to be able to touch. And I feel like that there's so many different ways to use that in poetry and writing that we can really go down the gamut. I would love for you to do that for yourself. But the first one that always comes up to me is that when I'm touched by somebody, when somebody touches my feelings or my heart, and I really feel them, right? And they don't have to be in the room for that, right? And somebody touches me through their art. Right? So this ability to touch. And many people with this gift become gifted healers and or therapists for people and animals. Another possibility is that this awakening of synesthesia, which is this genetic ability to link the different senses internally. So you could smell with your eyes or sense colors with your hands. Then for most people who have work energy, there's a version of this happening. But I often I feel like a lot of these that we are familiar with are visual ideas, and so maybe being able to see colors or see sound, right? And sometimes you see sound and colors, right? So having a lot of that, but it also works in other ways, right? So I can feel what I hear, right? And so, how may we not be like maybe one of the typical cross sections of this gift? That's a fun way to play with this. I know that there's another key, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but the gift is being able to smell when something is good or bad, to smell if it's like something's it's a sense, right? A sense of, have you ever heard the phrase that this deal smells bad? Something's off, right? Off, and as in like a fruit or a vegetable being off starts to smell, right? So our ability to sense what is good or healthy for us and what's not through other ways. Anyways, I just love this idea. When you pass into this higher vibration, you can also develop the ability to see emotional patterns in people and the needs of those people in the auric field. So it gives you access to the realms of magic that we can interact with that's beyond the senses. At the higher frequency, food is not just physical food, it's also prana and chi. So different cultures call energy different things. And prana is chi, to being here puts you in a sense of responsibility and discomfort. So again, like if you are coming from the lower frequency of this key, then you may not have had the senses before. And then when you start to develop the higher vibration and coming into the higher vibration, it can be overwhelming. It can be uncomfortable when we notice that the older environments that we used to be in are off, right? And it can feel discordant. It can create discordance in our feelings in our body, right? And so as the gift awakens, we start to have different experiences, including that being able to see the changes or movements or understand those changes and movements in our dream life. And we have seen this in across cultures with people that are living closer to nature that have these abilities to be able to tap into realms of quantum reality. And another way of saying that is to be able to see into the dream realms, which is often when they become or are called shamans. And one of key 19 is not the only key that allows us to portal into this ability to see, sense other realms. Key 62 and 12 are also in the ring of Gaia that allows us to connect into other kingdoms, parallel dimensions, and be able to even retrieve information from those places. And ancient connections of shamans have always been able to connect with mammals and so become what some cultures call whisperers. They act as a bridge between the animal or mammals and humans. And between those two species, they're able to build communication and bonds and information, sharing them back and forth. In our current culture, often these people are found helping out, facilitating in groups, right? Being able to sense the needs of others, maybe even being psychic, being able to read what people are exactly needing, right? And bring that ability to communicate and to make people feel their needs are being met. And that focus, that ability to read is a great asset in a lot, pretty much everywhere. But Richard specifically points out money, work, and relationships, how things are working together and are they working in flow. So that is the gift. How fun is that? The Siddhi is sacrifice. So remember, we started out as codependency, and codependency is when somebody gives up part of themselves, and then there's only that sense of the loss, and that it perpetuates this low vibration and drives us into this feeling of being incomplete and needing even more, or feeling the separation and the anger even more. It drives us into increasing negativity, and even though sacrifice is part of being codependent, it is also part of the highest service to all, right? This is what's so beautiful about our shadows is that there's nothing innately wrong with the frequency, even in the shadow. It is in its correct function. So it's a matter of how we get to experience that function. Do we experience the giving as a loss, or do we get to experience it as a release and a sacrifice that unites us completely with the whole? So unites us a gift that allows us to be even in full partnership and full connection with the other, which that can be a partner or a friend, or in the connection with all of humanity. And being and giving is part of our complete sacrifice for the total of our higher dimensional beingness as the unity consciousness, which is why so many love to use this term um, as far as like unity, universe, right? Unified, anything unified, because it gives us the sense of the total and that beauty of the idea of God and the encompassing of all of its creation. So that is it. And this purpose area of our lives, there are two manifestations of our purpose in the Gene Keys hologenetic profile. If you want to get your free profile, go ahead into the video summary and click for your free profile. Okay. Yes, we are talking about two aspects of purpose here. In line one, we are talking about physicality being the feeling and the being of the bones. So it's so interesting. So we're talking about something that is so energetically dynamic. We didn't talk a lot about physicality and the expression of the key, but in this 9-1, right, it is all about the physical. So bodies have often been called the temple. This is about recognizing and being in your body being able to anchor your understanding of life. And the more healthy and vital, the more movement the body gets, the more that life feels purposeful. So it's about this physicality balancing sensual enjoyment, balancing good food and physical activity, and getting your feet wet and enjoying the feeling of the things around you. The bones also hold memory. So it is part of how we understand ourselves as human. It's a record keeper of the mysteries in the past. And in order for us to find our future, it really does serve, especially line ones, to tap in to the knowing of the bones. Line one also expresses as the loner and then shadow and the anchor and the gift. And this is how we are recognizing line one with the energy of connecting to others. So, as a loner, there's a repressive tendency of not standing up for yourself and a reactive tendency of forcing your point of view. And the main block here is that you are driven by your need to feel secure. So, when you don't feel secure, you feel like you have to keep pushing and working to feel safe. And so, it really keeps you from being able to notice others and to incorporate others in that possibility. And so that breeds this aloneness and self reliance and not being able to trust others. And the gift, it's the anchor. It's being able to, inner strength is being able to stand up for yourself in a firm but kind way. And the outer expression is really about being able to listen to the needs of others. Isn't this beautiful how these are lining up? The key of 19 and the line 1. The highest potential is that your confidence makes others feel secure. So as you are tapping into your own physical beingness, the more you feel secure and the more others feel you feeling secure, and it reverberates throughout the vibration. So this is so interesting because the shadow the of the 19 key is very similar. This isolation and anger was, I'm sorry, the reactive side is this isolation and anger, and the repressive side is this um, tethering ourselves to the external because we don't feel enough in ourselves. So together, these can look like um, somebody who wants to be around others and so they never have to face the truth and the reality of themselves and their physicality and their aloneness. In order for us to even feel this aspect of line one in the radiance key, you literally have to be alone in order to really sense the truth of the purposefulness of the bones and really sitting into it. Right? And then when we are looking at those combined, they are kind of accentuating each other of I am alone and I need others to survive, right? Because that fear of survival is in the shadow of line one, of having enough. So that expression wants to become, and its genius, this combination of being able to sense the needs of others, sensing the needs of others, and knowing yourself and your body and your bones so thoroughly, and having so much experience of that that you are solid in your beingness and in your connection to life and purpose. And so when others are in your presence, they get to join in this feeling of comfort and groundedness. Right? And so, yeah, so that's the beauty of the Gene Keys 19 with line 1. In the Siddhi, I really see this as just being so able to release this attachment to our physicality and that need for codependence coming from the physicality of, again, needing food and survival, and turning into this being able to feed each other and our pranic energy and our total sacrifice in that continuity of giving and receiving. Beautiful Siddhi of sacrifice. So, thank you for joining me on Key 19 Line 1. Next, it'll be the vocal contemplation.